Hello.
Hi. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Embracing Joy podcast. We have a very special guest. We have Annabel Quintero. I would love to tell you more about her, but before I do that, just say hello to the audience and it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Such an honor. Thank you for inviting me. Hi, everyone. How you doing this, I think, what, fourth day into summer?
Mhm. Yeah, well,
Love it. Hope it's energizing you all. Can't wait to share this time with you.
well, it's such a pleasure to have you to be on the podcast because I think your experience and your message is so important. On this podcast, we help high achieving professionals embrace more joy and in their personal and professional lives. And I think your experience as a cultural wellness coach and with your experience writing your book, it all plays into how we all can learn to embrace more joy in our lives. So let me go over your bio with our audience and then we'll go into a few questions and do the whole podcast episode. This is great. So Annabel Quintero not only holds the distinction of being a best-selling author, she has an inspiring book. It's titled Step Step Jump. She is a beacon of hope and resilience. So the Step Step Jump title comes from a harrowing experience, a life altering experience that she had on September 11th, 2001, when she was on the 46th floor of the One World Trade Center. And it goes into detail on how she had an act of faith to take the steps and jump 46 floors. So she can tell you more a little bit later about her book. And she's done more than just have the book. She's also a dedicated coach and facilitator for students on Lisa Nichols' campus. And she's the founder of the Runa Group, where she channels her passion into aiding leaders to embrace their sacred gifts, trust their intuition, and embody reciprocity in all their relations. She is also a very important part of the Speakers Bureau at Humanities Washington, and she's also affiliated with the National Endowment for the Humanities. She's a proud mother of two, and she utilizes her wisdom and invaluable lessons on leadership, storytelling, and importance of contributing to our collective society. So, wow, it's not often that you meet someone that was at the World Trade Center who went through such a traumatic experience, but it's also still here, thriving and making a difference in the world in the ways that you are. So, just honored to have you on the episode today. So thank you again.
Me as well. Thank you so much. And
Mhm,
I will say, as I share my story, I know that I'm very aware that I'm blessed to be here
mhm,
and that unfortunately a lot of people passed away that day.
mhm,
And it will be triggering and maybe re traumatize people. So I like to
mhm,
share that beforehand.
mhm,
And I'm also very aware that a lot of people have lost their lives for like over 20 years of war since
mhm,
September 11th. So
mhm,
as I share my story, it's to honor all those who have fallen, all
mhm,
those who are suffering from war.
mhm,
And I hope that it also helps other people to share their story that has been unbearable to speak of.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And of course, we give homage to all the people who have lost their lives in
Mhm.
9/11 and in all the wars and tragedies since then. So, it's a pleasure to have you. So, with our episodes, we do a brief warm-up game.
Okay. And
This is a game to just get us on the same mindset, just to see if we can get to the same word. It's a warm-up game. So,
okay.
you'll say the first word that's on your mind. I say the first word that's on my mind. And then we can see if we get to the same word, like almost like
Oh,
jinx, but
okay.
intentional jinx. And
Okay.
the goal is to not get too specific. So, for example, we had a previous example where I said tissues, the other guest said joy. So we had to think of what brings joy and tissues together. What's something in that may bring them together, but it's not too specific. And we just randomly both said wedding because we were thinking happy tears, wedding, brings joy.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay,
think
I
of,
see.
yeah, so it could
Okay.
be anything. So we'll just say
So
the
it
first.
so I'm not trying to match the first word. It's just what
Right.
comes to mind.
Right. You just say the first thing that's on your mind, and then I say
Okay.
the first thing on my mind, and then we try to connect the two with our second word.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right,
Okay.
let's do it.
All right.
I
So
love
we'll
playing.
do on the count of three. You ready? Okay. So we try to say it at the same time, but sometimes there's a little bit of a delay since we're on, virtual, but we'll try to say it. We try to say our word at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So on the count of three, say the first word that's on the tip of your mind. Okay. Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
3. So we count down.
Yeah. So, oh, three. I was going to do one, two, three. Yeah. One, two, three. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. One, two, three.
Sky.
Peace. Oh, peace and sky. Okay. Something that puts peace and sky together. Got it?
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to say on the count of three again. You ready?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. One, well, two, three. Heaven.
I was wind.
Wind. Okay. Wind and heaven. Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Ready?
Okay.
One, two, three. Wings.
Butter.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Butter.
Butter? Butter?
I'm
Okay.
looking at the kitchen.
Okay, butter and wings, that may be something in the kitchen. Let's try to think of something that puts butter and wings together. Ready? It could be anything. Ready? Are you ready? Something that puts butter and wings together. Could be in the kitchen. You ready?
Okay, yes.
One, two, three.
Game
Biscuit.
day.
Oh, biscuit and a game day. I said biscuit
Oh, yeah,
because I
biscuits
was
with
thinking like butter and wings, when you go to get chicken wings and we
and
have
I was
butter.
thinking of people, when there's sports going on, everyone loves wings.
Okay, so game day and biscuits. Hmm. Game day and biscuits. Oh, okay. Yeah, you ready? Could be
Uh,
anything. Something that puts game day and biscuits together. It could be something like a category, like I'm
oh,
going.
okay.
Yeah, okay. You ready?
Okay.
One, two, three.
Party.
Snacks. Snacks. Party. I was thinking like party snacks. Party and snacks. Okay. Let's just say the first thing that we can think between party and snacks. Let's see. Party and snacks. Okay. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. One,
1,
two,
2,
three.
3. Community.
Appetizers. Oh, appetizer. I'm still on the food. App and community. Okay. Appetizers and community. Okay. Okay. I can put those together. Ready?
Okay. 1,
Two,
2, 3.
three. Networking.
Breaking bread.
Networking and breaking bread. Okay. Networking and breaking bread.
Let's see what the other people have.
Thanks, having any words.
Um, breaking
Usually,
bread and
so what we
networking. Well,
do
that's my kind of party. I mean,
if if the
you gotta have
time
food
goes,
at a party.
yeah, if the time goes a little longer than intended, what we'll do is the next one we'll just say the top of mind and we'll end the game. But it's still it's still a fun warm up game. There's no right answer. So let's see. So we said breaking bread and party, right?
You said networking.
Networking, yeah, breaking bread and networking. Okay, ready?
Okay.
All right. One, two, three. Friends.
People.
Friends and people. Okay.
Mhm.
Friends and people.
Yeah, I like that. I love your
I
warm up.
think we're pretty
This is
close.
good.
Yeah. I
Good.
think that's a good last. I mean, I think that's a good place to end it. We did pretty good. So we've got to friends and people, which people are friends. So we're pretty connected. So
It
it's
takes people to embrace joy, to take the leap and
mhm,
embrace joy, right?
makes joy, and people break bread, and
Mhm.
we started with the sky and the wind. So and we ended up with friends and people, which we have in the audience. So that's great. So now that we're warmed up, I have a few questions for you,
Okay.
Annabelle. Tell me more about your book. I know that your book, Step Step Jump, shares about your incredible journey of resilience.
Mhm.
But can you share that some pivotal moments from that day that maybe have influenced your approach to coaching? And I find it kind of amazing that you followed your intuition to make such a huge leap, 46 flights. So could you explain like how following your intuition has helped you to help leaders embrace their sacred gifts?
Okay, wow. Okay, so
Mhm,
I'd say the first leap was
mhm,
me moving out of my hometown, Seattle, to go to the Big Apple. So
mhm,
that was huge for me. I always wanted to model and I wanted to dance. I loved salsa. I loved breaking, be girlin', and I wanted to do more of that.
mhm,
I had always been very politically aware and involved in my community in Seattle, and
mhm,
I studied political science. But remember having a conversation with professors and them sharing that me understanding finances and politics would also be very important, and to
mhm,
not forget that. And so my brother was finishing his MBA at Columbia and was
mhm,
already in New York and was pursuing his career as an investment banker.
mhm,
And so I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the Big Apple and understand money. So I'm gonna go work in finance. I'm gonna go work in banking." And so I did, and I got this great job first at Deutsche Bank in the marketing department, and then I got this job at this boutique hedge fund.
mhm,
And that's really where I learned so much about watching markets, understanding industries, how to trade. My concept of a lot of money changed
mhm.
because, when you start seeing a lot of zeros, you
Mhm.
realize like, oh, what I thought was a lot of money was not a lot of money. And then I had amazing bosses that really helped me just to learn.
Mhm,
And so I would open up the market. I'd open up the office for the stock market. I'd print out all our portfolios so that my boss would have all his positions, which means like where everything is, where all the stocks are, and that's what positions means. And so I was there. I was running late.
mhm,
Monday nights are the best in Manhattan, so if you ever visit, go out on a Monday night. And so I got there, and his sweater was on on the chair, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's in the restroom. He beat me to it, so I'm like frantically turning everything on.
mhm,
And so finally I'm like sitting down reading the Financial Times, and all of a sudden I feel my building shift to the point where like
mhm,
my chair goes left to right, and I'm like, what was that?
mhm,
And
mhm,
I run out to the window and I look, and it's a clear, beautiful blue sky. I mean, it was sunny, it was just gorgeous.
mhm,
And because I had thought something had fallen on my building, but I realized no, all the other buildings are shorter than my building. So that's like impossible. And then all of a sudden, I feel the earthquakes. New York doesn't have earthquakes, at least it never did at that time. And
mhm,
so that I already was like, oh. And so I run to the door
mhm,
and I look back because I wanted to like stop for a moment. And I remember being like, what should I do? And the whole office turned a muted gray. And
wow,
so right then at that moment when I got that sign,
mhm,
and there was no smoke or anything like that, but I was by myself. And so I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here.
mhm,
And then the fear started setting in, and the fear of one, leaving my office, leaving the job, like leaving the desk when the stock market, but like New Yorkers don't do that. We work
Mhm.
hard. So that
Mhm.
was hard. And I was like, okay, just go down, make sure everything's fine, and then just come right back. But then the building started shaking again. And so literally I had to tell myself, Annabelle, you have to try to get down there, try to
Mm.
leave the building, even if you have to die trying. And so
Mm.
in that moment, I had to face death in my head just
Mhm.
for me to be able to take that first step. And I did. And I was being thrown around like a rag doll in a fun house. I
Wow.
got to the stairwell and
Mhm.
then was choking.
Mm.
Like all this smoke, I could barely breathe. And I was like, "Oh no, there's a fire." I was like,
Oh.
so I was like, "Oh my goodness, something fell in the building. There's an earthquake, and now there's a fire." And so
Wow.
there were 16 steps before me, and
Mhm.
with all my focus, I stepped with my left, and then I stepped with my right, and then I jumped on the landing, and I jumped, step, jump down 46 flights.
Mhm.
It was There was so much going on.
Mhm.
There were so many people.
Mhm.
I saw our beloved firefighters ascend their stairway to heaven,
Mhm.
who I always sending so much love to all firefighters.
Mhm.
And one thing I will say is it was the most traumatic day of my life in
Mhm.
terms of experiencing war and not knowing if I was gonna make it out alive and not
Mhm.
knowing we were still in a state of war. Like, we call it September 11th, it's like one day, but New Yorkers were in a state of war for weeks after
Mhm.
that because we really
Mhm.
didn't know what was happening, and anthrax was being mailed it was just awful.
Mhm.
But when I finally got uptown that day, I walked into this church. It was called the Good Shepherd Church up in
Mhm.
Inwood, and I remember placing my hands on the pews, and I was crying with gratefulness that I had made it out, that I was protected, that I listened,
Mhm.
that I made it out, that I could breathe. And
Mhm.
then in
Mhm.
that moment, that's when I had felt this river within me. I had never experienced that. It was almost like when you put your hand in a river and I could feel my blood flow inside of me,
Mhm.
and everything became alive.
Mhm.
Me, the wood, the stone in the cathedral, everything was vibrating. And it was like the layers of our existence were peeled open for me to see that, for me to experience that there
Mhm.
was no separation. So, in the most traumatic day of my life, I actually had a spiritual awakening of
Mhm.
our humanity, our sacredness of life, how everything is sacred, how everything is alive.
Mhm.
And I think that knowing that is what has informed my ability to work with all types of people and even leaders, because there's so much that leaders know that sometimes they can't share, or they're trying to make sure that they bring a whole team together, and they're very aware of everyone has a different conscious level and come at a team with different lived experiences. So being inclusive, but then also them knowing the obstacles of what it takes to bring people together, and having that compassion, that patience, but also clarity and integrity.
Mhm.
And in so I'd say that day, just because it was such a compassionate moment, like I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Mhm.
And that experience just informed how I approach my work with leaders, and how I do have compassion for all the constraints that they are around, and
Mhm.
how they need their safe space, right?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
do That's what I create for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. I that was, very emotional even just hearing your experience, and I know, that could be traumatizing sometimes even just sharing that experience because it was such a harrowing experience in your life that you were able to overcome, but you were also able to see what you were able to gain from that, which is that connection, right?
Mhm.
So we don't know if you've never had experience like that. You may not get to the point where you feel that connection or understanding of your connectedness to the earth and to the living that everything in that church was living for you at that time, just the same way you were breathing. I like that. And I was able to picture this whole story that you went through. So yeah, I like that. And you were also able to use what you've learned and the wisdom and knowledge that you've gained and the deeper understanding of yourself and that connectedness to help leaders. So that's great. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It
Yeah.
took me 20 years.
So
Healing takes time.
healing takes time. Yeah.
It's not instant, there's no checklist, and just the way I did it may be very different than way you or everyone else
Course,
listening will do it, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So I
of
hope everyone
course.
gives themselves that self-love to be patient with themselves.
Everyone has their own journey. And even with the podcast, like embracing joy, everyone's version of what brings them joy is different. Everyone's priority and values of what light them up are different. So we have to kind of learn to appreciate yourself, care for yourself, and find what brings you the most happiness. Because if you're looking at someone else, you won't find it a lot of the time.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So tell me, you are also the founder of the Runa Group, and you like you said, you mentor leaders in embracing their intuition and also reciprocity. Can you give an example of how you might guide a high achieving professional to balance their drive for success with also that need for cultural wellness? Like just an example. Maybe you have someone that you've worked with that you were able to help them find that drive to taper that drive for success with also their cultural wellness and holistic growth. Mhm.
Sure. And so cultural wellness, it means a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
It's of course at a societal level, and then
Mhm.
it's also at a organizational level. So
Mhm.
I have a master's in education policy and
Mhm.
organizational leadership
Mhm.
and learned a lot there, did a lot of work in education and policy. I'd say that cultural wellness, I see it as three prongs, and that's kind of been my life journey and my focus. So
Mhm.
I have my own spiritual practice. I am very clear of the work that I need to do to show up properly in the world, right? And also to be
Mhm.
in right relationship with Mother Earth, with everything living with my relations.
Mhm.
I also focus on politics, not politics in terms of the word we normally use it, but actually policy making,
Mhm.
investments in community organizations, and also financially really thinking about as an entrepreneur, like how can I share my knowledge of finances or how can basically be more involved in your financial literacy, right?
Mhm.
So in terms of leaders, I'd say that there's a couple examples. Sometimes being in right reciprocity with leaders, it's they sometimes want their teams to be focused on a particular thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's coming back to work, coming back to an office space.
Mhm.
And so really, how are you going to entice people to get in their cars, drive when
Mhm.
they can be productive at home, right?
Yeah. So
And
you're
so
talking about coming back from remote, like those remote workers. I know a lot of companies are having that experience where
yeah,
remote
so it's
workers
like
are wanting to come back or being
so
forced to
in
come
those
back, actually. They're not wanting to come back, but they're being
yeah, of course,
forced,
right?
but
I mean,
encouraged. Mhm.
it's unnecessary, but it's also necessary. So it's
Mhm.
both for
Mhm.
different things. And so where so with leaders, I think a lot of times they may want something, but how are you sharing the value of it? So you want
Mhm.
them there. So how are you being vulnerable, be sharing a story, building connection with
Mhm.
your team? and giving them that experience at the
Mhm.
office so that when they are there, they experience being more connected because leaders want there to be more connection and they right that's what they say,
Mhm.
but then sometimes they tend to be a little hands off themselves, like they're there, but how are you sharing yourself with your team?
Mm.
How,
Yeah,
right?
because
Like,
mentorship
what's,
would be important for the team, right? So that would
yeah,
be an incentive to come back to the office. Like, wait, will I learn more things that my supervisor may share with me, some additional guidance that will give me a cutting edge in my future? Maybe. Yeah, I would
exactly.
come
Like,
back. I
what's
would
the
come back.
value for them? Like,
Mhm.
the leaders see the value of it for their production and for
Mhm.
the culture because they want to be more connected. So, how are you actually building the connection? So, that's when whether it's a product development or whether it's a new campaign, it's like, okay, integrate your story when you're in your meetings.
Mhm.
Let's find ways if it's lunch and learns,
Mhm.
right? Or especially people want everyone to feel more welcomed and included. And
Mhm.
so, how can you do that in a way where people can show up with their culture, with their cultural foods that
Mhm.
smell up the office and smell very differently, right? And then not have to hear people
Mhm.
insulting your food, all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, right? All of that comes up. People just want to be at peace. And
Mhm.
so, how
Yeah.
are leaders creating a space so everyone can feel that they can show up and be
Yeah.
who they are, eat the food that they want to eat, not get insulted,
Mhm, or have these, like,
right?
microaggressions at work that they may be experiencing, and they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
I prefer to
Yeah.
be at home because I can be who I am." I'm not saying I don't work from home, but some people I've read some articles where people say, "Well, I prefer to be at home because I don't have to deal with, you know, the isms of society or microaggressions at work unnecessarily when I don't have to. I can I can do my work, submit it, send an email. I don't have to deal with the side comments,
Exactly.
Of like,
Yeah.
"Oh, your hair today," or "Did you cut your hair?" No, it's, whatever that whatever that may be.
All
All
of
of
that,
that,
right? And
yeah.
so, and then it's like, okay, well, how do you get your people to get to know each other? So I help
Mhm.
leaders in that way. Like, let's
Mhm.
do activities, let's do a lunch and learn, let's do a workshop, all of that. So that
Mhm.
I'd say that's an example of how I help.
Awesome. I love that. So we finish all of our podcast episodes with a few wrap up questions. So I have a
Okay,
few wrap up questions for you.
great.
Who is a model of joy for you in your life and why? It could be someone you know personally, or it could be fictional, literary, and just explain why. Mhm.
A model of joy.
Mhm.
Wow.
Like, when you think about joy, is there, like, something some people say children what stands out to you? Like, as, like, that is a joyous and that's a model for joy for me.
Yeah, I'd
Mhm.
say I have two dear friends
Mhm.
that when we get together, they are laughing
Mhm.
and they do what they love.
Mhm.
And whether it's with their family or whether it's them dancing, after being a mom and having kids and all
Mhm.
that, right? And then
Mhm.
also just laughing through the work, through the in and day in and day out. And I'd
Mhm.
say, so yeah, my dear friends Lauren and Veronica,
Mhm.
they are a model of joy, and it bubbles out from them. And
Mhm.
so then of course it gets me going and
It's
I giggle.
contagious, yeah.
I giggle a lot. I laugh a lot. So then we're all just having a great time together, and
Mhm.
you can hear the laughter, you can feel it. And so yeah, I'd say they're a model of joy for me.
Love that. And then if you were cooking a cake of joy, what would be your top 3 ingredients and why?
Ooh, a cake of joy.
Mhm.
I love fruit.
Oh, fruit cake, okay.
Well, not fruit cake.
Or
No,
fruit as
I
joy.
don't like fruit cake. That is not joyful. But like like light like angel food cake. It's like
Okay.
my my stepmom Shirley, she makes a beautiful angel food cake and fresh
Mhm.
strawberries and like
Mhm.
mangoes and
Oh, that
like I
sounds
just love
delicious.
strawberry mangoes. I just love that. So yeah, that'd be angel
It's
food cake.
angel food cake. So if you were baking a hypothetical cake, not one that you could eat,
Oh,
and it was just the top 3 ingredients for joy, what would they be for you?
if it was a hypothetical,
Yeah, so say you make
um,
it tiered, like the top 3 things that you think, so I know you have such, you said that you have faith, you have the pillars about cultural wellness. What are your top 3 pillars for joy? Mhm.
well, love, like
Mhm.
love for myself, love for others,
Mhm.
wisdom, like having sacred knowledge, but also just a lived experience. And then
Mhm.
also the work, like the tenacity to practice it and
Mhm.
embody it.
Yeah, so taking action towards those things and definitely like embodying what you say you stand for as far as the love and tenacity. I love that.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
love is Munay, Yankay, and Yachay in Quechua.
mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in my indigenous language.
Well, this was a great episode. It's been wonderful talking with you, Annabelle, and learning more about your story. Where can our listeners learn more about you, or if they want to work with you per se for their organization, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm
Mhm,
on LinkedIn,
mhm,
so Annabel Quintero, and also on Instagram.
mhm,
And that one is, I believe, Annabel underscore Quintero. But even if you put up Step Step Jump in Amazon, they can get my book there
mhm.
and hear
Wow.
all the many stories, my hip hop stories, my spiritual
Mhm,
stories,
mhm.
and then the one of healing, I think is will be powerful. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. It's
It's
been such
been
a
such a
joy. I love the
pleasure.
games and the questions.
Thank you. Well, it's been such a pleasure. Everyone, please get her book, Step Step Jump. You will not be disappointed. It's a wealth of knowledge and experience from Annabelle about what she experienced in her life. And if you're looking to work with her, please follow her on LinkedIn. Please share this episode with a friend or a colleague. And don't forget to like and subscribe to learn more about our future episodes. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a joyful rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Bye.